Hello and welcome back to the box office, guys. We have another week of fights. We have Terrell Gausha, Vegas underdog, taking on Tszyu, son of Tszyu, who has delivered many memorable fights in his career. He's a boxing legend, and my best memory of him is when he knocked out Tszyu in the second round. Knocked him down. Tszyu gets up on wobbly legs, doesn't know what's going on. Referee stops the fight. Tszyu gets so mad that he's about to hit the ref. Great memory. Epic fight. It's going to go down in boxing history. You'll probably see the clip played over and over throughout the years. It's one of those things that is so out of whack that it will never die. He also defeated Chavez, Tszyu, and Shambe Mitchell. So this guy has a good resume on his hand. And son now, Tszyu, is trying to live up to the bar that his dad set. Now, he is on the fast track since 2019. This is going to be actually his 10th fight. So he's on the fast lane to being put in title contention. As a matter of fact, a win here, and he'll be in line to fight for the 154 title that Brian Castaneda currently holds. Only thing in the way is Terrell Gausha, who he himself has had his fair share of ups and downs in his career. A 10-year career. He debuted in 2012. He actually debuted here in Indio, California, and he was part of a boxing card called Night of Champions. He debuted with the likes of Errol Spence, Rasheem Warren, Dominic Brazil, and Gary Russell was actually the main event that night. Terrell Gausha actually has a soft spot here in my boxing book just because I've seen him grow up throughout the ranks. I've seen him have his ups, I've seen him have his downs, and I've seen the oddness in his career. Speaking forth of this fight, it's highly anticipated a crossroads matchup, but there is a clear favorite and a clear underdog. The clear Vegas favorite is Tszyu, as he is 20-0, but he's actually a minus 1,000 Vegas favorite, meaning you have to bet $1,000, and if he goes out and wins, you get $100 in return. That's too much risk in my book to put on a Tszyu victory. Now, Terrell Gausha, on the other hand, he's a plus 570, a big underdog, and if you were to bet $100, you're going to get $570 in return. So you'll walk out of the sportsbook with $670 in total because you will be returned your $100. Now, a couple other bets, because fights like these that are overseas or fighters from overseas have a lot of hype. So there's a lot of prop bets and a lot of prop bets going on early. The over-under rounds is set at 10.5, meaning you can bet whether you think the fight's going to go over 10.5 or under 10.5. If you believe the fight is going to go over 10.5 rounds, you bet $150 and you'll get $100 in return. If you think it's going to be under 10.5, you bet $100 and you'll get $130 in return. Do you think this fight's going to go down as a decision victory for either fighter? If you do, you bet $122 and you'll get $100 in return if that happens. If you think there's not going to be a decision, then you bet $104 and you'll get $100 in return. Now, here's where we get nice and juicy with the numbers. If you believe that Terrell Gausha can potentially knock out his opponent in Tim, if that were to happen right now as we speak, the odds are $1,200, $1,200, meaning you bet $100 and you'll walk out of there with $1,200, $1,200 plus your $100. That's a lot of juicy numbers, right? Now, if you think Tim is going to win by knockout, that's at a plus 125, meaning you bet $100 and you'll get $125 in return. You'll walk out of there with $225. Gausha by decision is at a plus 950. Tim by decision is at a plus 105. So by taking a look at that really quick, you can see that the odd makers actually think that this fight's going to go the distance. But they wouldn't be surprised if Tim knocks out Terrell in the fight, as those two are very, very closely placed as far as odds go. Now, if you think this fight's going to be a slugfest or a tale of two halves of the fight and it's going to ultimately end in a draw, then that's at a plus 2,300, meaning you bet $100 and you get 2,300 in return. That's a lot of juice, right? A lot of, those are juicy numbers. Now, let's take a look at Tszyu. He's fighting out of Australia. He is at a minus 1,000, as I mentioned. He's currently going to enter the ring at 20-0. 15 of those wins coming by the way of knockout. He's 5'8.5" with a 72-inch reach. His last 3 fights were against 1. Takeshi Inoue, unanimous decision victory. Steve Spark, TKO victory. And Dennis Hogan, TKO victory. Dennis Hogan's actually the interesting one in his resume that I was looking at, because Dennis Hogan is a seasoned veteran. He's seen the likes of Jaime Munguia, and he's actually gone the distance with some other memorable names. So to see him being TKO'd in the 5th round is pretty impressive. He actually got Hogan out faster than Charlo did, which I believe Charlo got him out in the 7th round. So there is improvement in Tim. Now, Terrell Gausha, on the other hand, he's been having more of a difficult time at this time of his career. He's going to enter the ring at 22 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. 11 of those wins coming by the way of KO. He is 5'10", so he is the taller fighter, and he has a 73.5-inch reach. So he's going to have 1.5-inch reach advantage. His last 3 fights were against Jamonte Clark, where he TKO'd him in the 2nd round, Erickson Lubin, which was a unanimous decision loss, and Austin Trout, which is a split decision draw, believe it or not. Now, as I mentioned, for Tim's 3 fights, Dennis Hogan stood out. For me, Gausha's Austin Trout fight stands out, because if you look at the way he fought Trout and the way he fought Clark, kind of 2 different styles. And I can see that being part of the game plan, trying to wear out an older fighter. But it is a little concerning, especially if you're trying to bet for Gausha. The Clark performance, though, is a little more settling, and it kind of calms you down. You can see that he has a little more skill, speed, and he has a little something left in the tank. Speaking of having something left in the tank, let's move on to the keys of victory, because we're going to have to see what these fighters are going to do in order to achieve success. Starting off, as I mentioned, with Terrell. He's a Vegas underdog at a plus 570. Gausha, step 1 is going to be work off the jab. And that's something he did very well against Clark. Clark was a taller fighter, but Gausha was able to land his jab to the head, jab to the body, and fight at his distance. If you can work off that jab, you can start landing that jab to the head, jab to the body, and then coming over with the right hand to the head, right hand to the body, feint to the body, go to the head, feint to the head, go to the body. You start opening up your repertoire for other punches to start landing. So work off the jab and just kind of let that jab dictate the flow of your offense. Number 2 is going to be don't shell up. And that's something that I saw a lot of against Austin Trout. Yeah, you might have felt like you were the bigger man, the younger man, the stronger man, the faster man, but you can't shell up and let the opposition throw 100 punches and you just catch everything. That's a recipe for disaster, and that's a recipe for disaster when Tim is known as such a hard puncher. He has some highlight reel knockouts in his resume, and you don't want to be a part of those. So, don't shell up. Or if you do shell up, don't do it often. Work off the jab and get your distance and avoid shelling up. Even if you are trying to walk him down, come in with the jab, come in with some head movement. Just don't shell up. You're going to make me uncomfortable. And if you want to succeed in this bout, you don't stay in front of a man who has pop in both hands. And 3 is going to be set your punches up. Look, I know your last fight ended by TKO. You stopped the guy. But don't look for one punch. Don't look for one punch, especially if you see someone that's willing to engage in front of you. Yes, I said it. Tim is going to want to engage. But just because it's there doesn't mean you should load up on one punch and try to call it a night. You want to set that punch up with the jab. Set it up with some feints. Set it up with some body work, then come up top. You don't want to rely your whole night's work on landing one punch. You do these 3 things, you're going to put yourself in a better position to pull off an upset, a massive upset. I wouldn't mind seeing it, but on the other hand, we have Tszyu. Tszyu has a lot to live up to. Costa Tszyu, boxing legend. The son, at a higher weight class, is coming in hot, 20-0, 15 knockouts. Key number 1 for him, he's actually very, very talented, and he goes to the body. A young fighter that goes to the body is a dangerous fighter because they have the gas tank of a young fighter, but they're also taking your gas out, poking holes on those tires, making you work more. So, Tim, go to the body. We've seen you countless times, especially in that Dennis Hogan fight, where you're just throwing that left hook to the body and you're breaking them down, breaking them down, breaking them down. Well, if Gausha is going to shell up in front of you, start breaking them down. If someone's going to stand in front of you, start breaking them down. Take him to deep waters, empty out his gas tank, and then take care of business. Number 2 is going to be work off the jab. And the reason I say that is that you want to measure your opponent, especially if the opponent is taller than you and he's going to have that range. You don't want to lunge in. You don't want to be off balance coming in with hooks and expose yourself if the taller fighter is at his distance and can counter. I do expect, Gausha to set traps to try to bait you into lunging in so he can catch you with an uppercut, a hook, or a right hand. But work off that jab. We know you can set that hook to the body, but setting it up with that jab, coming up top, and then dipping, going to the body, is going to pay the bills this night. Because you can't expect, like I said to Terrell Gausha, to come in and just start throwing hooks and landing hooks at will. I do expect Terrell to come in. He will catch some. He will shell up a little bit. But I do expect him to be at his distance. The smart man's fight for Terrell is to be at a distance. So you're going to want to work off that jab and kind of get at your distance through the jab, through head movement, and not just coming in straight forward in the straight line to be hit. And number 3 is something that I've kind of seen earlier stages of your career, and it can kind of still not haunt, but it still shows up on film, is you want to bend your knees a little bit more. A lot of the times you're so strong and so you're so used to hitting people and throwing everything with your upper body. I'm going to want you to bend your knees a little bit. Bend your knees and throw hooks. A lot of the times you're throwing hooks, but you kind of stiffen up and throw with everything you got. What you want to do is bend those knees. Don't expose yourself by just stiffening up and throwing as hard. So don't stiff up. Bend those knees. Use your legs. Move your head around and then set those punches up. Last thing you want to do is throw stiff punches where your head's up, chin up, and then you get hit with something that you shouldn't be hit with or something that could have been avoided, and it changes the whole dynamic of the fight. But you do those 3 things, you're going to put yourself in a good position to not only win this fight, but if Terrell decides to shell up, you might be able to stop the man. As far as my prediction for this video is, I do think Tim should come out victorious, especially against Terrell. That it didn't sit well, that Austin Trout fight. Then he lost to Lubin. He looked really good, but he only looked good for 2 rounds. So I think Tim should win the fight, but I wouldn't mind sprinkling a little something on Terrell by KO, specifically early on the fight. I'm typically the type of guy that likes to sprinkle something later in the round in the fight, in the second half of the fight, as far as knockouts go. But I think in this case, Terrell can if he comes out hot, he comes out motivated, he can land something early on, maybe in the 3rd, 4th round, and potentially get him out of there early. But chances of that happening are going to be slim. But that's why you only sprinkle on those type of bets, right? As far as for the fight overall, Tim should come out on top. Terrell Gausha is going to put a valiant effort. I know he's game. He's seen a lot of styles, and I do like his style. But Tim should come out up top. And if if he does the right things, if he makes the proper adjustments, he can get him out of there. Gausha, shock the world, baby. I know you can do it too. Give it your all. Make it a hell of a fight. And we'll see you guys on Saturday. Now, please comment, like, subscribe. And what do you guys think is going to happen? Tim? I like Tim. He's a really good fighter, and I hope he does well. Terrell just has that soft spot on my book because I've seen him professionally plenty of times. Trying not to be a fan, guys. I'm trying to look at the styles, but it's hard to do. What do you guys think is going to happen? Take care. We'll see you guys for the next one.